Hey guys, this is Purist Reacts. It's been a while since I've done one of these because well, no offense to the original uploader of the loader recap I was watching, but it was like legit the one of the only ones that I saw that was actually, a reaction. And I don't know whether it was like anything to do with the settings that I had on the search or whatever, but I found another one that is quite a lot more succinct. In fact, about 99% more succinct. It's from Men of the West. Complete timeline of Middle Earth. I'll have this linked in the description like I usually do. And we're going to react to this instead. Because, well, I don't want to be reacting to the same video for like, I mean, you saw how long those other videos were. I would, those two videos, about an hour and 20 minutes each, covered about an hour and a half of the original video. So, yeah, do the math. It would have been like about 10, 12 parts of reacting to the one video. I kind of want to have like more reactions instead of just reacting to the exact same video all the time. So this is going to be a condensed version of the complete timeline of Middle Earth and by extension, Lord of the Rings. So let's go.
But when they were come into the void, LOTR said to them, Behold your music. And he showed to them a vision, giving to them sight where before was only hearing. And they saw a new world made visible before them, and it was globed amid the void. And it was sustained therein, but was not of it. And as they looked and wondered, this world began to unfold its history, and it seemed to them that it lived and grew. Greetings and well met, my friends. Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we shall be endeavoring to accomplish one of the most far-ranging and important videos that this channel has ever seen, the telling of the general and broad history of Middle-earth, from the music of the Ainur and the creation of Arda, through what we know of the Fourth Age. Now, it would be impossible to capture the whole of the history of Middle-earth in this one video, so that is where my Timeline of Arda series comes into play, as well as my many other videos. In that series, we explore major parts of the history of Middle-earth in greater detail.
Oh.
This video will cover the basic and general information in each major age of Middle-earth, and
Okay, I didn't know that. So I mean, I probably won't be reacting to this guy because this is frankly the first video I've ever seen of this bloke, but I do have another Lord of the Rings channel that I do trust. If you guys want to actually have like some details of Lord of the Rings lore, you can put it in the comments and I will try and find ones from them. I mean, I'm sure this guy's videos are really good, but like, I mean, check him out, but
it shall serve to contextualize the peoples and events of the different ages. Many specific characters and events will not be named herein, but that does not diminish their contributions to the Legendarium. Rather, I will mention the peoples and events that I find most important throughout each age.
Yep.
I should also say that even though Tolkien marked the history in different years of different ages, before the coming of the sun and moon at the beginning of the First Age, each year was far longer in that time than each year was under the sun and moon.
This was something I also learned, like, fairly recently. Apparently, before the sun and moon even existed, they measured time differently, which is kind of appropriate, considering that, you know, they were all elves. Thus, they have a different understanding of time than we do, considering they're immortal. So, I think, like, the amount of time between the year of the lanterns to the, you know, through the years of the trees, through to when the sun and moon was created, was around about 100,000 years of our time, unlike the times afterwards in the ages. So, quite a fair whack of time.
This means Valiant years were longer than solar years. I'll have to make a separate video about that for more information. Now, I'll link some related videos and timeline articles that helped with the creation of this video, and I cannot praise those articles enough for their aid in this endeavor. They are very helpful. This video won't list many of the years specifically in which events occurred, as listing those many dates would overcomplicate this video, but those linked resources should have many of the specific dates for events if you are curious. Also, as with every video, a huge shout out and thanks to the online artists who made this video possible. If your work is featured in this video, please send me your name, a link to your work, and a timestamp of your work in this video, and I will place all of that in the description below to credit you. It's the least I could do.
Nice woke. It's always best to link your sources. I mean, I am in this very video.
I'll also leave timestamps in the comments below to help you jump all around this video. Now, without further delay, let us begin our extraordinary tale, my friends. Let us start with the beginning. This was the Ainu Lindale, the music of the Ainur. The Ainur were the Holy Ones and the offspring of the thoughts of Iru Iluvatar, the god and one above all. In ages hence, some of these greater Ainur would be the Valar, while other lesser ones would be the Maiar, and some would not even go into Middle-earth. The Ainur were spirits who had the flame imperishable and true life within them, although at this point in time they did not have physical bodies or Hror. In this time before the creation of Ea, the created world, there was Melkor, who of the Ainur had the greatest knowledge and power, and he
and also edginess.
Wandered into the void, searching for the flame imperishable, so that he might make life of his own.
Basically, like, screw you, I'm gonna make my own life with blackjack and hookers and also a weird monstrosity of a spider semi-girlfriend-ish thing.
Melkor never found the flame, for it was with Iluvatar. There came a music amongst the Ainur, and Iluvatar acted as its conductor.
I know this is like, ooh, this is useful. Oh my god. Yeah, this is, let me see if I can, like, remember these off the top of my head. Yavanna is of nature. Aule was the warrior guy. He had a gigantic hammer. I can't remember who Manwë was. Governor over there. Varda was the sky. Ulmo was the sea. Orome was the sun. I think. He probably explains it later.
And even through the harmony and unison came the discord of Melkor. From this music came a vision of the world and the children of Iluvatar to be. Among the Ainur were many, such as Manwë, the noblest of the Ainur and the perceived brother of Melkor. Ulmo, who was most deeply instructed by Iluvatar in music, and he was enamored with the waters and seas. There too was Aule, who had been given skill and knowledge, but less than Melkor, and his pride was in making and crafting, and his thoughts were with the fabrics and materials that made up the world. After Iluvatar,
Also, you can see Yavanna and Aule holding hands. They, they were a couple of some significance, like, they, like, hung out with, like, the elves for, like, a time. I don't know if that was mentioned in my, in the previous, video that I reacted to, but I think that must have been mentioned.
Made the world be, sending the flame imperishable off into the void that was to be the heart of the world. Some of the Ainur went into that world.
I like the way this guy says Iluvatar with the rolling R, which just sounds great.
And their powers became bound to it. Some of the mightiest of the Ainur first came into the world, and they were the Valar, the powers of the world. They took shape to themselves and began to forge the world into a place habitable for the children of Iluvatar, and Varda, the wife of Manwë, created the stars. The Valar would call to them companions to help in the crafting of the world, these being the Maiar. Melkor tried to claim the world as his own kingdom, thus starting the strife between him and the other Valar, especially Manwë, his brother, who would not let him have it. The Valar and Melkor would have a first battle, and they labored to create and he desired to destroy, but the Valar would make the world ready indeed, although not in their fullest desires because of Melkor's doings. And so Arda came into being. Now we enter into the years of the lamps. After the coming of Tulkas the Strong, one of the Valar, Melkor fled and forsook Arda for a time.
Yeah, I was confused between Aule and Tulkas. Tulkas is the guy who's like the warrior, as you can probably see. He's like the one who's just like, Ryu, I'm gonna beat you to a pulp now.
There was then peace for a time, and the Valar created the two lamps. One lamp was created in the north, named Iluin, and Ormal in the south. It was a time of changeless day in Arda, and the Valar rested from their labors on the island of Almarin. It was a time called the Spring of Arda, but eventually Melkor returned from beyond the walls of night with servants, and he created Atumno, his fortress in the north. From there a sickness came upon the land, and the Valar knew of his return. Then he came forth and brought ruin to the two lamps, and cast down their pillars, bringing fire and other devastations to the lands of Arda. Thus Arda was marred, and always will be. The Valar would then depart from Middle-earth and go west, where the land of Valinor would be established. Manwë would rule there, and his great eagles would be his messengers. In Valinor, the two trees would be created from the song of Yavanna, the husband of Aule, and the tears of Nienna, the Lady of Sorrow and the sister of Mandos, the Doomsman. Thus there would again be light in Aman and in Arda, and a new age would come. Melkor wielded cold and fire in the darkness in Middle-earth.
I do love the fact that basically all that Melkor has wanted to do is just smash all that is created. Also, this art is really fucking cool. Holy shit. Congrats to whoever the artist is. Holy god.
But there was a new safe haven in the west. Iluvatar pondered on the ever-coming of his two children, elves and men. The elves, the Quendi, they would have and conceive the greatest beauties of all his children. They would be forever bound to the world, and even in death, they would return to the halls of Mandos in the west, to be returned to life in time, until the end of the world. Men, the Atani, would seek beyond the confines of the world and virtue to shape things beyond the vision of the music of the Ainur.
I kind of forgot this game existed. This was, yeah, Lord of the Rings Online. I think it started around the same time as World of Warcraft, I think. Got shut down like in mid 2010s, I think. By all accounts, it was a really good MMO. So I've heard. Never played it. Kind of wish I had.
They would live for short times upon the world, and leave the world at their...
Sorry, I nudged the microphone there. Also, I kind of don't, because I wasted time, like, just like on free trials of like these games. Most notably EVE Online. I know how many like times I like refreshed online like thrown away useless emails in search of that. I was a random child.
...their deaths, and to take part in the second music of the Ainur. Ilúvatar thus decided all of this in such a time. We come now to the years of the trees. From now through the Fourth Age, I will organize my summaries a little bit differently. I shall discuss the main characters first, and then some of the major events after I've mentioned those main characters that take part in such events. Like in the ages past and through the end of the First Age, the Valar and Maiar would be important in the years of the trees. After the awakening of the elves, we have Ingwe, the king of the Vanyar elves, Finwë, the king of the Noldor elves, and Elwë, the king of the Teleri elves.
I feel like I can't.
Feanor, Fingulfin, and Finarfin are the sons of Finwë, and they are important in this tale, as are their children also. Melkor, or as he is later named Morgoth by Feanor, who is no longer recognized as one of the Valar, and his ally Ingoliant come into play during these years as well. In terms of events during the years of the trees, we have the creation of the dwarves by Aule, and the adoption and gift of life to them by Ilúvatar. They were put to rest until the coming of the elves. In contrast, the Ents would also be created through the advocation of Yavanna, the giver of fruits. Of course, eventually the firstborn children of Ilúvatar would awaken in Cuiviéinen under the stars, and the Rome, the hunter of the Valar, would find them. Some of these elves would be taken and corrupted by Melkor, creating the first orcs, and in mockery of the Ents, trolls would also be created at some point. Sometime after the awakening of the elves, dwarves and Ents would also come to be, and the Longbeards who followed Durin the Deathless founded Khazad-dûm in Middle-earth. After the awakening of the elves, the Valar took up mastery of Arda once again and assailed Melkor. Angband was commanded by Sauron who, in years or ages past, turned to the service of Melkor, and it was raised but not fully explored by the Valar, and many dark things dwelt in its vaults due to that fact. But Utumno was destroyed also, and Melkor was taken captive by the Valar. Melkor would be imprisoned for 3 ages during the Years of the Trees. The elves would then eventually send Ingwe, Finwë, and Elwë as ambassadors to Valinor, before the elves moved there. Not all elves would actually end up coming to Valinor, for many of the people of Elwë or Thingol, as he would eventually be known, stayed in western Middle-earth, Beleriand, and other elves did not even go that far.
Yeah, there was like a I mean, they could be like all these elves that we don't even just know about, just like in like the Far East of Middle-earth. Well, not even Middle-earth, Arda.
The elves dwelt for a time in Valinor, and from them would come great works such as the Silmarils, crafted by Feanor using the light of the 2 trees. Eventually, Melkor would be released from his imprisonment under the guise of change and goodwill, and his plots and lies would go out and cause distrust and aggression amongst the Noldor elves. Eventually, Melkor would depart the land and make an unholy alliance with Ungoliant the Spider, who was a spirit from beyond Arda. Together, during a festival in Valinor, they destroyed the 2 trees and fled into Middle-earth once Melkor slew Finwë and took the Silmarils from the house of Finwë and Feanor. This alliance would be dismissed after a small battle for the Silmarils took place between Melkor, now called Morgoth by Feanor, his Balrogs, and Ungoliant. Ungoliant fled southwards, and Morgoth went with his Balrogs back to Angband, where the Dark Lord rebuilt. Then the Oath of Feanor and his sons would be made, and many of the Noldor, including his half-brother Fingolfin and his followers, went into exile. Some, such as Fingolfin's full-blooded younger brother Finarfin, stayed in Valinor. The doom of the Noldor would be pronounced by Mandos, which would shape the elves during the First Age, and the first kinslaying would happen at Alqualande, and Feanor's elves would steal the elven ships and take them into Middle-earth, while Fingolfin took the other elves into Middle-earth through way of the icy Helcaraxe. Feanor would be slain in battle in Beleriand by the Balrogs of Morgoth, and the moon and sun would first come into being and rise above the horizon, for they were vessels driven by Maiar.
Holy crap. Damn. Again, this art is amazing. Holy crap.
And they were the remains of the two trees of Valinor. That brings us finally into the First Age of Middle-earth. Again, we shall begin with an introduction to the major characters before looking at the history. Many of the main characters we have in the First Age are elves, some of which are Fingolfin, his sons Fingon and Turgon, the children of Finarfin, Finrod, Angrod, Aignor, and Galadriel.
It's really remarkable how, like, little, like, generations we have between, Finwë and, like, the guys who created them, Fingolfin, Celeborn, and yeah, Galadriel. It's only like 1, 2, 3, 4 generations removed. And keep an eye on this guy.
As well as Orodreth, the son of Angrod, and Gilgalad, the son of Orodreth. We also have Eor, the Dark Elf, and his son Maeglin. The 7 sons of Feanor: Maithros, Maglor, Celegorm, Curufin, Carenthir, Amrod, and Amros. There is also Thingol, formerly known as Elwë, and his wife Melian the Maya, and their daughter Luthien. We also then have people from the race of men, such as Beor, Hador, Haleth, the 3 heads of the houses of the Edain. From the houses of men come Barahir, Beren, Hurin, Hur, Turin, and Tur. From the elves and men both come the renowned half-elves, Eärendil, Dior, Elwing, Elrond, and Elros. As for the dwarves...
Okay, here's this thing that is really intriguing to me. There was like a thing with like Elros and Elrond. Elros, from the descendants of Elros came the kings of Numenor, and by extension, the men in Westerness, who is Aragorn. So technically, Elrond, by extension, Arwen is a long-distant, great, however many greats cousin or something of that nature, I think. Pretty sure.
Dior, Elwing, Elrond, and Elros. As for the dwarves, King Azaghal, Telkar the Smith, and Mim the Petty Dwarf are important characters. The notable servants of Morgoth are Sauron, Draughlin the Werewolf, and his son Kakoroth, Glaurung, the father of the dragons, and Gothmog, the lord of the Balrogs. Now, as you can see from that huge list of characters, There's a lot that happens in this age, and arguably, more individual events take place in the First Age than any other age, except perhaps the Third, although it is not the longest age. So I will once more briefly summarize. After the coming of the Noldor from the west, Morgoth was eventually pushed into a siege in Angband. During the first year of the age, men awoke in Hildorien, in the far east, and eventually they would make their way into Beleriand. Before the Long Peace, the elves expanded and created kingdoms such as Gondolin and Nargothrond.
I really want to read about Gondolin. That's all I wanted to say.
Eventually the dragon Glaurung was seen, but he was shortly after defeated, and he retreated into Angband, thus beginning the Long Peace. The greatest conflicts during this time seemed to be quarrels instead of battles, such as Thingol discovering the kinslaying and hating the sons of Feanor, or Erethel, the daughter of Fingolfin, being slain by her husband, Eul the Dark Elf, before being slain himself in Gondolin. Men eventually began to appear in Beleriand.
Hold on. He glossed over that part, but apparently there's such things as dark elves. What? Also, baby eating hair.
And many of them became friends of the elves, starting with the friendship between Beor and Finrod Felagund. But eventually Morgoth broke the siege on Angband, and Glaurung once again emerged, but far stronger. And from then on the Free Peoples began to suffer larger defeats in their war against Morgoth. However, there were some grand and renowned deeds that took place, such as the quest of Beren and Luthien, that saw a Silmaril stolen from Morgoth's crown. But there were also many sad tales in contrast, such as the tale of the children of Hurin and the fall of both Nargothrond and Gondolin and the ruin of Doriath. The age also saw more kinslayings by the children of Feanor in pursuit of the Silmarils.
Yep, the curse of Feanor. Wonderful.
Eventually, near a time when all seemed lost, Eärendil and his wife Elwing, who yet had the Silmaril of Beren and Luthien, came to Valinor and begged for aid from the Valar. Then a great armament was taken up by the west, which would come eastward. And then in the War of Wrath, Morgoth was defeated once and for all, and he was cast outside of the Walls of Night, thus ending the War of the Jewels that had started in the Years of the Trees. After the war, one Silmaril was in the sky with Eärendil, one was in the earth with Maithros, and one was in the sea where Maglor had cast it.
Huh. Cool symmetry.
At the end of the age, a choice between being of the kindred of men or elves was given to the half-elves, and Elros chose to be a man, and he would lead his people to Numenor in the Second Age, while his brother Elrond would be the herald of the new and final High King of the Noldor, Gil-galad.
This is like part of the thing that kind of confuses me. Is that apparently certain people, if you like try hard enough, you can just choose to be mortal? It's like somewhat alluded to in the movies as well, with like everyone telling Arwen that if you stay here, you would just be mortal and just, but also just linger until you would just, you know, yourself. Like, the terminology of this is like extremely confusing, and I kind of want to learn more about that. Like, the whole logistics of them choosing to be an elf or a man, and like how does that work? Or is it just like a mindset? I don't know.
For Elrond himself had chosen to be an elf. Sauron fled the destruction of his allies and went into Middle-earth.
Ooh, yeah. This is... I actually really want to get like a full map of like the entirety of Middle-earth. But I can never seem to find one that's readily available. I mean, this one that they're using right now is like kind of the closest that I've seen, but I've never, actually seen any in paper form that I can hang up. And I want to hang this one up. Yeah.
War had seen the downfall and destruction of Beleriand, and so our characters also came into Middle-earth, and the First Age was ended. We come now to the Second Age. Our major characters here are the elves High King Gil-galad, his herald Elrond Half-Elven, Círdan the Shipwright, Galadriel, Celeborn, King Orifer and his son Thranduil of Greenwood the Great, and King Omdir and his son Amroth of Lorinond, or Lothlorien. Finally, among the most important elves, there is Celebrimbor, the grandson of Feanor, and the son of Curufin.
Yep. Pay attention to him, he will be important. As dramatized in yeah, I wouldn't really say retold, because the actual series of The Rings of Power I basically just regard as fan fiction. It's like fan fiction based off a literal couple of paragraphs in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings. I mean, it explains why the story, like, in Rings of Power is so fucking shit. But, like, yeah. It's a shame because the actual look of the series is so fucking cool. But just like the plot of it is so fucking contrived. Anyway.
Concerning important men, we have Elros, or Tar-Minyatur, the first king of Númenor, Ar-Pharazôn, the last king of Númenor, Elendil, the high king of Gondor and Arnor, and his sons Isildur and Anarion. For the dwarves, we know Durin III, who received Durin's ring, one of the 7 dwarven rings of power. Finally, concerning evil, there is only one really worth knowing in this age, and he is Sauron, or Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, as he appeared to the elves.
I mean, there was like another thing that I really kind of hated about The Rings of Power. They didn't make Sauron androgynous when they appeared to the elves to like try and convince them to make the rings. I know it's a weird thing to harp on about, but as he'll probably explain now, is that he appeared to the elves as being fair of face. And beautiful to all who look upon him. And if you look at who plays Sauron, I don't know, maybe it's just like a me thing, but I don't know. Or it could be that I'm just a heterosexual man. And that I don't fucking know what makes a man beautiful. Maybe that's it.
I should also mention his Nazgûl are important servants of his as well. Concerning the history of this
don't forget the Nazgûl, they're kind of important.
Age, Elros led the Dunedain, or Men of the West, to Númenor, where they lived for millennia. The elves dwelt in Middle-earth, and many of them under the kingship of Gil-galad, who ruled from Lindon. Some elves went with Celebrimbor into Eregion. Eventually, Anatar, a fair being who called himself the Lord of Gifts, came forth and taught the elves of Aregian ringcraft, eventually resulting in the creation of the 9 rings of power for mortal men, which would create the Nazgul, 7 rings for dwarves, which increased their wealth and their greed, and the 3 elven rings were also created and were not tainted by Sauron, and they garnered healing and good qualities but were still subjected to the power and domination of the One Ring.
Yeah, that's like an aspect that isn't really explained in the books or the well, actually I think it's explained what the Rings of Power did for the dwarves, kind of. It's like offhand, because one of the uh dwarves who actually had one of the last dwarven rings of power was called Thror, and he was lost in Moria around 300 years or 200-ish years before the Hobbit was like started in the story. Because Thror was the father of Thor and Oakenshield, or grandfather. Might be grandfather, yeah. And yeah, the as this guy explained, the 3 elven rings, if I remember, Gandalf has one. It's the Ring of Fire, technically. Círdan the Shipwright has the Ring of Water, I believe. And yeah, Galadriel has the Ring of Adamant. Yeah. It's actually explained in the movies. That's why I just remember it. I don't actually know what the 9 rings of power are supposed to do for men. Is it just supposed to be like the lesser forms of like, just like focused on bringing like power and immortality, I guess? I mean, that's always our following these kinds of stories. Probably.
Finally, the One Ring was crafted in Mount Doom by Sauron himself, made to control all of the others. The 9 men fell under his sway, but the 7 dwarves were too hardy to be turned. But greed and lust for wealth came to them, and the 3 elves sensed that they were deceived and took their rings off. Thus, the War of the Elves and Sauron began, resulting in the death of Celebrimbor and the creation of Imladris or Rivendell as the stronghold of the elves in Eriador by the decree of the Second Age's White Council. With the aid of the men from Numenor, Sauron would be pushed back, for a time. Eventually, he angered the Númenóreans once again, and they would take him captive. With his deceitful ways, he rose to a place of power during the darkening of Numenor.
Yeah. Because, like, Numenor was supposed to be like this. Well, it was supposed to be a reward for all that men did during the First Age, destroying Melkor. And well, Sauron took advantage of that and decided to instill in men the envy of elves, and like how much they actually hold their immortality and all that stuff. And so, as you see, like during the darkening of Numenor, they actually worshipped Sauron. They actually worshipped Melkor as like a kind of fallen god for a time, and then the last king of Numenor, Terminator, I believe his name is. He actually tried to sail to Valinor, and for that, well, you'll probably see in this.
And convinced the king Ar-Pharazôn to send forth an army to the
Ar-Pharazôn, that's his name. Yeah.
undying lands to fight the Valar for immortality.
Yeah. As soon as he stepped foot, the Valar freaking noticed, and, well, things would happen.
This failed, and Numenor was drowned, and the world was made round or different by LOTR himself.
For the punishment of men to actually want to have and desire immortality, he sunk an entire island and made the world round. Okay, fine. We never really wanted it anyway. Holy crap.
So that only some could find the straight road to Aman. Some faithful men survived the downfall of Numenor and came into Middle-earth and created the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor. With them came the descendant of the White Tree whose ancestors went back to the years of the trees, the Palantiri of the Elder Days, and other items such as the Ring of Barahir from Finrod, the Scepter of Annúminas from Numenor, and Narsil forged by Telkar in the First Age. Eventually Sauron returned, and the Free Peoples made the War of the Last Alliance upon him, resulting in the death.
My god. Just like those words, eventually Sauron returned. If you've watched The Rise of Skywalker, you know what I'm talking about. That's... fuck.
Deaths of Orifer of Greenwood, Omdir of Lorinond, Gil-galad, Elendil, and Anarion. The One Ring came to Isildur, and the Age came to its end. We finally come to the Third Age and the most famous age of Tolkien's works. The major actors in this age from the elves are Elrond, Galadriel, Celeborn, Thranduil, and Legolas. From the race of men we have Isildur, Eorl the Young, Cirion the Steward, Bard the Bowman, Theoden, Eomer, Eowyn, Aragorn, Elisar, Boromir, and Faramir. We have the wizards Saruman, Gandalf, and Radagast who are important as well. As for the dwarves, Durin the Sixth, Thror, Thrain the Second, Thorin the Second Oakenshield, Dain Ironfoot, Gimli Elfriend, and Thorin the Third Stonehelm are all important as well. Amongst the hobbits, Smeagol or Gollum, Bilbo Baggins, Frodo Baggins, Sam Gamgee, Pippin Took, and Merry Brandybuck are some of the greatest heroes of the age in the larger history of the world. From the forces of shadow we have Sauron, the Lord of the Rings, Durin's Bane, Smaug the Golden, the Witch King of Angmar, and the other Nazgul. Now let's jump into the history of this age. At the start of the age, Isildur met his end in the Gladden Fields, and the ring was lost for thousands of years. The kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor were afterwards ruled by different kings, Arnor from the line of Isildur, and Gondor from the line of Anarion. Around the year 1000, the wizards came into Middle-earth.
Yep.
Throughout a majority of the age, Gondor saw battle from Umbar in the south, Harad and Rhûn in the east. As for the dwarves, they would live and prosper in Khazad-dûm until the awakening of Durin's Bane in 1980, and afterwards they would go to Erebor, the Lonely Mountain. The kingdoms of men declined in power through plagues, wars, and other things, and Gondor would eventually...
Also into breeding, apparently. That was like a whole thing. And also the rise of Rohan, which I only learned recently was basically a vassal state of Gondor. I mean, they probably wouldn't call themselves that, but it all makes sense when you think about the movies now, right? Gondor calls for aid, and because it's a vassal of, yeah, it makes sense now, doesn't it?
Eventually lose Minas Ithil to the Nazgul, and Osgiliath would no longer be the capital, as Minas Anor or Minas Tirith became the new capital. Eventually, Arnor split into 3 kingdoms and was destroyed by the Witch King in the Angmar War. Gondor also lost its line of kings, and the stewards began to rule. After 1000 in the Greenwood Forest, Sauron eventually went to Dol Guldur, but was ousted by Gandalf, a member of the Third Age's White Council, a little over 1,000 years later, for Sauron was not yet ready to emerge, so he fled to the east, marking the Watchful Peace. During the middle of the Third Age, the hobbits began to become more well known in Middle-earth, as many of them migrated from near the northern Anduin into the Shire. Eventually, a hobbit by the name of Smeagol received the One Ring and held it
Oversimplification, he was supposedly a hobbit, or something like one.
For himself,
But I
and
need
Sauron
to
returned to Dol Guldur.
say that.
Smeagol became known as Gollum, and he lived in the Misty Mountains for many years. The men of Rovanion in the north, then called the Eotheid, after much of the kingdom of Rovanion was destroyed, came to the aid of Gondor in the Battle of the Field of Celebrant against the Easterlings, and for their aid the land of Kelenarthon would be given to them, and it would be called Rohan thereafter.
Yep, there we go.
The Eotheid removed there, and they were called the Rohirrim, the Horse Lords. Eventually, in the later years of the Third Age, Smaug would go to Erebor and take the Lonely Mountain from the dwarves. King Thror would be slain years later by orcs, igniting the War of the Dwarves and Orcs. And the dwarves of all lands would gather and beat the orcs, but they would not retake Khazad-dûm. Thrain eventually was taken prisoner by Sauron's forces in Dol Guldur, and the final dwarven ring of the Seven would be lost to the dwarves, as Durin's ring was taken by Sauron.
Yeah, there we
In
go.
2941, dwarves led by King Thorn Oakenshield would embark with Bilbo Baggins on a quest to retake Erebor. And during this quest, Bilbo
Fun fact, this is exactly the art of my first copy of The Hobbit had. I remember this visibly.
found the One Ring in Gollum's cave. During that same year, Sauron, or the Necromancer as he was called, was ousted from Dol Guldur by the White Council and returned to Mordor. Smaug would be slain by Bard the Bowman, and the Battle of 5 Armies would take place. The dwarves took back their home, and Bilbo returned to the Shire with the ring. Then in 3018 and 3019, the War of the Ring took place, and Frodo, the heir of Bilbo, would set out to destroy the One Ring. With the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo journeyed far, and even farther with Sam and Gollum at his side.
Trusty saucepan.
Gollum still lusted for the ring, however, but he was a great help to the hobbits in their adventure. Gandalf slew Durin's-Bane and returned to life as Gandalf the White in the position of Saruman, who had betrayed the Free Peoples and made war on Rohan. Rohan would be aided by many members of the Fellowship of the Ring before they turned to aid Gondor. Eventually, Rohan and Gondor stood together and fought back Mordor, resulting in the death of the Witch King by the hands of Merry and Éowyn, the niece of Theoden, the King of Rohan.
Yep.
The West would march on the Black Gate of Mordor, like the Free Peoples had done in the Second Age, giving Frodo and Sam a chance to destroy the ring. Frodo and Sam went through many perils, such as Shelob's lair and the treachery of Gollum, making it to Mount Doom where the ring was forged in the Second Age, the only place it could be destroyed. But Frodo could not do it. Gollum got the ring back and danced, and if by coincidence, or the will of Ilúvatar who began it all, Gollum and the ring fell into the lava of Mount Doom. Sauron was destroyed, and the West had won. Aragorn restored the kingship of Arnor and Gondor, and Faramir was made his steward in Gondor. Éomer took up the kingship of his uncle Theoden and Rohan, who had perished during the war. The hobbits returned to the Shire and ended the threat of Saruman, who had taken over there. A majority of the elves left Middle-earth. Frodo, Bilbo, and Gandalf went with them, and they took the straight road to Valinor. Thus ended the Third Age. From the Third Age, I should also say that the Red Book of Westmarch, detailing the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, was written and preserved. Finally, we come now to the Fourth Age. The main characters here are the ones we knew from the end of the Third Age, plus Durin the Seventh and Eldarion, the son of Aragorn and Arwen. In this age, the stories and characters we know came to many of their ends. Aragorn passed away and his son Eldarion became the next High King. All of the elves left in Middle-earth either went to Valinor or faded away in Middle-earth. The dwarves reclaimed Khazad-dûm under the leadership of King Durin the Seventh.
You have no idea how long they've been seeking Moria. Because Moria was taken over, like, I believe at the start of the Third Age. It was like overrun. So, yeah. It just makes me happy that they finally go back to Moria.
The hobbits would continue on and expand their lands. Merry and Pippin passed away, as did Éomer, Éowyn, and Faramir.
Remarking to the expanding of the lands, Aragorn actually just gifted them a, like, basically lands from the Westmarch to Buckland, almost to Bree, I believe? And that's only because, technically the Shire was given to the hobbits by the High King of Fornost, which was, you know, another name for the High King of Arnor. So technically, the Shire hobbits were also a vassal, technically, of the High King of Arnor, which is another interesting thing.
At last, Gimli and Legolas and Sam on his own would take ships into the west, and they too would go to the land of the Valar in Valinor. Middle-earth became the world of men, the second-born children of Ilúvatar, ruled by the descendants of Aragorn and Éomer. Within this age would lie the events of the New Shadow, the unfinished sequel to The Lord of the Rings. Beyond all...
What? Okay, I want to know about that. Unfinished sequel to The Lord of the Rings.
All of this, we do not know the end of the world. Perhaps Dagor Daggerath, the last battle, will happen, and as it prophesies, Melkor shall be slain. Perhaps the Silmarils shall be gathered and broken, and the new light of the two trees shall fill the new world after the second music of the Ainur. However, Arda is and shall always be marred, so the future is unclear. This is all speculation and may not necessarily be canon. Thus, we come to the end of our tale of the major characters and events of the history and timeline of Middle-earth.
There we go.
From the complete timeline of Middle-earth, we see truly how vast the works of one man are. One person can create so much and can change the course of the world, just as J.R.R. Tolkien shows us. I do not also forget the aid of Christopher Tolkien, who released and edited many of the works of his father that fill out the history of the Legendarium.
Aid of Christopher Tolkien. Mate, like, legit, how much he had to do. I can't believe he literally made it his life's work to just basically collect all that his father had written down. Just wow.
Thank you all so much for watching. It really means a lot, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it, and it was definitely one of the most important, large-scale, and difficult videos I've ever made. But I am so glad to have done it. It was quite an honor. This video hopefully helps outline everything in the Legendarium in a general sense, whereas my other videos help define the Legendarium in a more in-depth way. Please leave a like and a share. It would help spread the greatness of Tolkien's Legendarium.
I'm trying, this isn't...
It would help this video a lot. Let me know any thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections in the comments below. I hope this timeline shows why I'm so passionate about Tolkien's works. Everything in it is so fantastic. Please check out our music channel, Facebook, Twitter, merch, and Patreon for a podcast and Discord server. Links for all of those are in the description below. I want to thank our Valar tier patrons, Adrian D.
All right. I mean, that is a brief, very, extremely brief history of Middle Earth. I found out some stuff that I didn't know even existed, like the unfinished sequel to Lord of the Rings. Like, what? Anyway. As always, I will leave the link in the video down in the description if you want to check them out. And yeah, finally I get to react to more stuff. So if there's anything you want me to react to first, leave it in the comments. I'll be happy to read it. Now, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I've been Purist, signing off.